Good afternoon and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. And I'll be the one taking you through today's webinar. So just before we get kicked off, a couple of good to knows as we go throughout today's webinar. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to ask them and we'll get them for you at the end of today's session during the Q&A segment. We usually run that for a few minutes at the end and it's always a pleasure to answer any questions that you might have. Additionally, in between each of the three core topics that we're going to discuss today, we'll also make sure that we make time for any questions or any notes that you'd like to take as well. So we will be taking a brief pause in between each of the core topics today as well. So without further ado, let's get kicked off. I'm going to switch off my video camera now, so you won't be able to see me, but in just a minute's time, you will be able to see the presentation that we have up on screen there for you. All right, so now you should be able to see the presentation that we have up on screen, but you should no longer be able to see me. All right, so if I could just do a very quick sound check, just let me know that you can hear my voice okay, and indeed that you can see the presentation up on screen there for yourself okay as well. All right, so today's topic of conversation, how to grow a business in a thrifty fashion. It's a very, very good topic, especially for those that are early into business or looking to start their own business in the near future. Okay, so my name is Ben. I'm a business coach and I specialize in working with small businesses, just like many of the businesses on here, to help them achieve stability and growth. Now, today's discussion points. Okay, first of all, we have what does being thrifty mean in this context, understanding your money, and using resources available to you. All three very valuable topics and very much looking forward to giving you lots of information on each one. So let's get ourselves started with topic number one. Thank you for the confirmation that you can hear me okay, grand, and you can see the screen. Perfect. So let's get started then. What does being thrifty mean in this context? Okay, well, let's talk about it. Using each and every resource available to you to your advantage. Okay, something that we as early business owners or, startup phase businesses often forget is that we do actually have a wealth of resources available to us. And it's very, very important that we make sure that we do use these resources, because it's very easy to sort of lose sight, perhaps, of these resources and try and pursue potentially more expensive channels when that's not always completely necessary. So something that I say often, and you probably will hear me say, if you do have some funds, it will very likely speed up your business process, but it's not absolutely essential to have funds in order to grow the business. Using resources that are available to you intelligently, making sure that you make use of them and that you benefit from them, is a big, big part in this. Okay, so for example, you have networks and networking events. You have free educational materials. You can refine your own skills. There's lots of free training out there as well. There are books that you can get your hands on. There's lots of educational tools. There's also things like free social media for advertising. If you learn how to use search engine optimization to get your website to rank better on Google and things like that, there are lots of ways that you can utilize the resources that you have available to you to your advantage. Now, the next component of this, of course, is if you do choose to spend funds, if there's any money that you do wish to spend, you should be spending this money extremely effectively. Okay, so what we always want to be aware of is that in business, funds can be very, very important. And when we do have them, they're limited. And because they're limited, it's absolutely crucial that what we are doing with those funds is the most sensible, logical thing that we can do for the business. And it should be aiding in the growth and succession of the business and of the business. Okay, so what I mean specifically by that is if you do choose to use those funds to, say, for example, run a social media paid advertising campaign, that's fantastic and a good idea. However, you need to be absolutely certain that you've done your research on what types of advertising campaigns work best for your business. You need to research your target demographics for the advert. You need to make sure that everything associating with the advert is running smoothly and likely to be effective with your audience as well. So any of these funds that are being spent, you can say, okay, well, look, these are being spent as effectively as possibly can be. And we should always be monitoring our cash flow and our finance situation with our business and making sure that we're not just going to be in business this month, but we're going to be in business this year and for years to come. Okay. Now, monitoring expenses and reducing where necessary. This again is a very, very big one. Some of us may be guilty of this in business, that we're paying for bits of software that we either don't use or weren't even really aware that we were paying for. Okay. Many of us, as long as there's money in the bank, don't worry too much about, okay, well, what's coming out, what's coming in. It's very easy to lose sight of that in business. So I'm not saying that you have to check it every single day, but at least once a week, go into your bank account, your business banking, check what's happening with your finances. Are there any expenses that are coming out that shouldn't be coming out? Now, here's a simple tool here. If there's something that you pay for on a monthly basis, but you only use it twice a year, just sign up for that month when you need to use it, unless it's something that you need to stay consistently signed up to. Stop the subscription when you're finished and then go back to it again. So say it was £10 a month. You've just saved yourself £100 a year by doing this simple thing, okay? So instead of paying £10 a month for a subscription that we sometimes use, just use it when you actually need it, and you'll find that you've actually saved yourself quite a significant amount of sum over the duration of a year, okay? Maximizing business profit while minimizing business outgoings, okay? So this is essentially the cardinal rule of building a financially stable business, amongst others, okay? Profit always has to, be at the forefront of our minds, okay? Turnover is great, but profit is really what we need to be looking at, okay? Because if your business is earning £5,000 a month, but spending £5,050 a month, you're going to find yourself losing money every single month until eventually that bank account is depreciated. There's no money left in the business, okay? We need to make sure that we know what's happening with the profit, and we need to make sure we maintain healthy profit margins, okay? In addition to that, minimize your business outgoings where you can. If you're spending on advertising, make sure you're spending it in the right place and that it's yielding results for you. Additionally, make sure that you're not paying for any software that you're not using. Make sure that we're not spending money, business funds, on things that we just don't really need. Like, say, a t-shirt with our logo on it if we work from home, things like that. It's not completely necessary. So especially in the early days, protect those business funds. Be very, very certain of what you're spending, and be absolutely, potentially even more certain about what's coming in. All right, so that brings us to the end of topic number 1. I'll be back with you in just a moment's time. I'm going to leave that up on screen for you there. And I'm going to be back with you in just a moment's time for topic number 2. So please do feel free to take this opportunity now, where we're going to pause to ask away with any questions, and indeed jot down any notes, and I'll rejoin you in just a moment's time. Fantastic. So moving ourselves nicely on to topic number 2 now, we'll be talking about understanding your money, okay? So there's a big difference between an investment and an expense. And this is something that's important to be understood when we are spending our funds within the business, to make sure that, in many ways we understand not only where our money is going, but how it's going to benefit the business. So the big difference between an investment and an expense is that the investment should typically, often directly, bring money back into the business. So let's use an example of that. We talked about social media paid advertising earlier. If the campaign does well, it's likely that it's going to bring money back into the business. So if we run a good advert, for example, say we spend £100, that wins us £200 worth of business. Happy days. That's an investment. That brings money back into the business. Okay. Now, an expense, for example, is something that will provide nothing in terms of financial return into the business. Now, there are different ways to look at expenses, and some can be in some ways considered as investments. But if we just use this really as our most basic example, let's say that you're buying tea and coffee for the office. Okay. Now, you could say, I suppose, theoretically, it's an investment because then we're not spending money at a coffee shop. But you ask yourself, what is essential? So it's small, and I'm not saying don't do it, but let's say you're buying tea bags and coffee for the office. That's £5 or £10 a week. That's £40 a month that likely will not come back into the business. So therefore, it's an expense. And it's very important to understand the difference when you're spending money between an investment and an expense. So without understanding the cash flow within your organization, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to start and subsequently scale your business, okay? We talked about regularly understanding what it means to be a startup financially for your business and what it means to be an early business owner. And one of the very big components of this is to make sure that understanding our cash flow is of paramount importance to us as business owners, okay? We need to know what's happening with our money. And in its most simple form, understanding cash flow is making sure that we know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. Now, whilst this may sound simple, it's not always the easiest thing to keep track of, which is why I recommend, as we said earlier, going into your bank at least once a month and checking how much is coming in and how much is going out of your bank account, reducing and minimizing expenses, and proactively focusing on the income for your business. And if you realize that you're going to fall short income-wise this day, this week, this month, however you choose to track it, you need to then go and fix that situation. You need to generate new leads. You need to speak with new clients. You need to find a way of bringing in more money for your business, okay? So without this understanding, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to start and then subsequently scale your business, okay? Now, processes can be created to release funds being used for business purposes, okay, that ensure the money is being well spent, okay? You can get things like purchase orders that are come in and used in the business, sorry, and they are checked. Each expense is checked to make sure that that's something that the business is happy to spend money on. So often what that would mean is somebody puts in a request and they say, I would like to buy this. Please may I buy it? And it will go up to management or somebody else and they would say yes or no. Okay. Again, in its most simple form, amongst other ways, this is how purchase, or one of the ways that purchase orders work. So using tools like this allow the checking of, is this a good idea to spend, money on this item? Okay. Or whatever it is for the business. Now, let's say that you had somebody working with you and they wanted to run a Facebook ad campaign. They wanted to spend £500. They create, a draft of what they would hope the campaign to achieve, create forecast reports and so on, come over to you and say, hi, I would like to spend £500 of the business money on this campaign. I think that it would provide X, Y, Z for the business. And then you can either say yes or no. All right. But what it does mostly is it helps everybody analyze and think twice about the money that's going to be spent in the business and make sure that everything is being well spent. Okay. So as startup businesses, we are always looking for the best value for money investments. We're always making sure that whatever it is that we're spending money in or on is the absolute best value for money. So if we're purchasing software, we're using it, make sure that we're getting really, really, really good value for money. Same with advertising. Do we have better success on Facebook? Do we have better success on Google? Do we have better success on other platforms? Okay. Return on investment is very important. So for every pound you spend, if you're getting £1.50 back on Facebook and you're getting £1.20 back on Google, then theoretically better value for money would be to spend your funds on Facebook. So always monitor this if your funds are limited, okay? Which for almost everyone, they are. So this is always a good process to have. All right. So as startup businesses, we're always looking for the best value for money investments. So that brings us to the end of topic number 2. Once again, we'll take a brief pause and I'll be back with you in just a moment's time for topic number 3. Fantastic. So let's move ourselves on to the third and final topic of today's conversation, using the resources that are available to you. Okay. So we've talked about understanding cash flow. We've talked about watching what is happening with our finances within the business and how to be thrifty. We also want to talk about the fact that your biggest resource is yourself. Okay. Your potential to develop as a professional is unlimited. You can learn as much as you like. You can develop yourself professionally as much as you like, especially when you are a business owner. Okay. Within reason, there are no limits as to what you can learn or study or train in, or the skills that you can develop for yourself. If you'd like to become more confident during sales calls, you can do that. If you'd like to know how to advertise better, you can do that. If you'd like to become better with numbers, you can do that, okay? Something that's very important, never to forget as individuals, is that we can learn these things should we choose to, okay? It's not for someone else. If you want it to be, it's for you. Now, using these resources is not always abundantly obvious. So if there's something that you find yourself struggling with day to day, look at what that is that you might be struggling with and figure out where and how you can get training for that, or how you could develop yourself in that skill set further. Other resources are also available to you that cost little to no money, okay? You can do networking. We spoke about this in slide number 1. You can build connections at zero cost. You can connect with people on LinkedIn, which is a free to use platform if you'd like it to be. It won't cost you any money to build connections and speak with people. You can connect with other people through social media. You can go and get coffee. You can also look at other different ways in which you can network and connect. You can go to events hosted by companies. You can go to conferences, expos. You can go to these, and they're not always free, but they often don't cost very much money. And you can build these connections. And to make the actual connection is very unlikely to actually cost you any money apart from maybe the price of a cup of coffee. Okay. It's very important to be focused on building these connections. You also have social media. There are so many platforms available for social media, and all of them, if you would like them to be, can also be free. So you can market your business. This is literally a free marketing platform for your business that, because I believe so many of us use on a daily basis, we actually overlook it and we actually don't consider it as a marketing channel, but it absolutely is. We also have educational resources that will allow you to build your skills at zero to no cost. Okay. You can go onto YouTube, for example. That's just literally one example. And you can look at videos on how to develop a skill in something, how to become better at something, how to, learn something specific that's going to help you go faster or smoother or whatever your plan is. Okay. Now, additionally, you can also use Google and other search engines to look at, free blogs, articles, business related content, marketing related content. You can follow people who are experts in the area on social media. Again, not something that should be overlooked. There's always stuff to be learned. Whilst money can provide a faster growth plan for a business, it's not the absolute only way. And this is so important to talk about because, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, and I'm saying again now, it will certainly provide potentially usually a quicker path to growing the business, but it is absolutely not the only way to grow the business. There are lots of other ways to do it as well. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's webinar session. What I'll do now is I'll give you a brief moment. Please take the time to jot down any final questions that you have. Thank you for the questions that I have so far. I'll answer them for you in just a moment's time. And indeed, any final notes that you may wish to take as well. Okay, and when we are finished with this brief pause, we'll go on and we'll do the recap for today's webinar session. And I'll also answer the questions that you've asked for today. I'll see you again in just a moment. Fantastic. So to recap, business funds are used extremely effectively. They always should be. So please make sure that if you are going to spend funds within the business, they're being spent in a very effective way. There is a big difference between investment and expense. An investment brings back money to the business typically, and an expense will not. And utilize the resources that you have around you. Okay, make sure that you benefit from the resources that you have available to you. Very, very important step. So, as always, thank you for attending today's session. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. If you'd like to talk to a member of our team, you can do so on iob-business.com/talk. On this link, you can book a call at a time that suits you. Okay. Now, what you'll see when you follow this link is a calendar just like this one. So I'm going to leave that up on screen for you along with the link just now, whilst I get the questions from today's session. Perfect. So first question, I don't think my business will grow without paid ads. Okay, well, fair enough. Great question. Okay, so what I would suggest here is if you could look to potentially change your mindset a little. Ads certainly give the business a boost, but they are far from the only way to grow. For example, networking events. You could potentially even host your own online or in-person event. You could run free, events online. You can market your social media business online. You can you can market your business via social media. You may also have a social media business, but you can also market your business on social media online. You can ask your current clients or people in your network for referrals. There are lots and lots of other ways to grow as a business, but thank you for the question, and I hope that helps. Next question, can you explain investment versus expense again? Absolutely, of course. So an expense usually provides no financial return, okay? Typically, like we said, tea or coffee for the office doesn't provide financial return for the business, all right? But an investment will. So let's use this example, advertising will likely, if it's done right, bring in a return for the business. Coffee machine or coffee or tea bags, unlikely. So if that example helps, please feel free to use it. Another great question. Thank you. All right. Do we have any more questions from today? No, looks like that's it for today then. All right. Well, as always, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you on today's webinar session, and I look forward to speaking with you again on the next one. Bye for now.